Hello, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you are here. I truly mean that. So, welcome to the Daily Medicine transmission for the 24th of March, 3/24/2022. Welcome back, everyone. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to see what Catalyst Energy is all about, what this Daily Medicine transmission business is exactly, and to the STARSEED Fellowship, those of you who are monthly subscribers through Subscribestar. We will be meeting tomorrow on Zoom, 8 p.m. Eastern, and we'll have an opportunity to really enter a dialogue and talk to each other and have much more of a roundtable discussion about all the themes that come up for all of us who identify and find ourselves on a starseed mission or a lightworker mission, or just to be an embodied spiritual being in this lifetime for the main event, right? Earth on its awakening process into an evolved spiritual consciousness. So, and it's not like the first time this has happened. It's just that it feels like this has been, something we've bumped up against as a species many times over. And of course, we've talked about that a lot with especially the Atlantean story. So this in front of us is called a peculiar galaxy, and it's in the area of the sky of Aries, the zodiacal part of the sky, Western astrology of Aries, this particular galaxy. So as you may probably already guess, this is the photo from Astronomy Picture of the Day. It's linked in the description box below if that's something that inspires you and you want to bring some astrophysical, astronomical, cosmic images into your daily routine. That's certainly what I like doing. And I started doing that actually when I was taking a class, a series of classes in stellar physics and cosmology. And that was just part of the resource package for all of us, is to get into the habit and, write a little journal entry or whatever. So it just was something that kind of stuck. And now it's a great way to give the eye something to be inspired by and to look at. So this is a spiral galaxy, just like the Milky Way, as you can see. So, and Aries is something we're going to talk about. The moon is soon to be in that third quarter square. It's actually going to be exact at 1:38 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 25th, which is technically tomorrow. So we're going to talk about that today, leading up to that, and what that's really feeling like. Because I think now the fire that burns in all of our souls is going to be applied in some ways to something very substantial. And we're all going to really address for each of ourselves what power really feels like, and what type of power feels differently within us with this moon in Capricorn. And of course, with the third quarter moon, we're going to have a crisis point here, a crisis of consciousness. And the sun in Aries is very optimistic, it's very fresh, right? We're coming into a new season, regardless of where you are on the planet. We're still coming into a new season, either spring or fall, depending on what hemisphere you're in. And so it is a time of change and a time of reckoning in some ways. But coming into Aries is in a sense of freshness, newness, the seed, right? The seed, or the healthy ego consciousness, the subjective I am that will naturally and quite instinctually advocate and act on its own self-interest. And for all of the negative press that the ego gets in the spiritual realm, which I think is we're going to talk about why this is important right now today, in particular, because the impact of input on our own consciousness and a sense of ego consciousness and healthy boundaries is a big part of, I think, why we've ended up in this situation many times over, but especially now, in terms of, the wounding of self, which Chiron in Aries is really going to come out of the woodwork. Oh boy, it's going to come right up onto the surface, like a flare. And just like a solar flare, we're going to talk about that too, because boy, there's a huge sunspot that is brewing on the sun. This is a great segue. So lots of astrology to talk about, mostly kind of reflect on the overnight time where all of the Pisces energy with Jupiter, Neptune, and Mercury, we're in a square to the moon, hovering around the center of the galaxy, our own spiral galaxy. So go over kind of what that means, and what it may have meant for each of us, and really start to look at this third quarter moon. So and it's important because we're finishing up a cycle, and really with the new moon on the 1st is going to begin this real next season, and that's what this How Can It Bloom seasonal forecast is really going to focus on. So this is a reading sale that I'm offering. You can go to the website in the description box below if this is interesting or interests you. So you get 60-minute recording or 90-minute recording that's jam-packed with your natal chart, your progressions, your starseed markings, and kind of give an idea of the areas of life that are going to be impacted, and the main themes to work with on a soul level and at a spiritual level and an esoteric level, right? We're all here to evolve as a soul, and especially as a starseed. You really came here for a purpose that is related to right now. So, and it's unique to everyone. And that's what's so great about the starseed readings, right? You really get a unique picture or a unique pattern of resonance for your particular mission. So I've been really enjoying a lot of the demos that I'm doing from the last summit that I was part of, an astrology summit that I was part of, and we just talked for 45 minutes about starseeds. And so part of that offering was these demo readings. So I'm going through those, and it's just I just really enjoy the process of getting to know people at this level and really confirming a lot of things that people have intuitively come to on their own but really weren't sure about. And I love how the chart and the cosmic time clock really can allow us to interpret. Symbols and language really make up the universe and our experience. So it's probably good to be able to have some sort of literacy around these things. Anyway, so when we talk about healthy boundaries, this is something that I want to bring up. So we're going to move over here to some space weather. And I don't know what happened to suspicious observers, by the way, but there hasn't been any type of report on YouTube in the last 2 days, so I'm very curious. So as you can see, the Schumann this morning, so this is 7 to 11 a.m. Universal Time. So we're looking at, roughly 3 to 5 a.m. Eastern Time on the U.S., right, that you start to see this amplification. And it goes pretty far by the time it reaches it. So it's a progressively louder blast, right? It gets to about 45, which is pretty good considering you can see how stable it's been for the last couple of days. And so there's actual space weather to point to as we kind of just scroll down, just kind of remind ourselves here, right? There's the pitch or the frequency itself, the quality of that, and then obviously the volume. The amplitude is the volume, how loud it is, how strong the tone really is. And this is what I want to talk about, because I listened to a video not that long ago, about a day or so ago, and I'll link it in the description box. And it's called Rise Together. A very interesting woman. Very interesting. I not agreeing with everything, and not sure exactly where her sense of well, you'll see what I mean if you listen to a couple of her videos, right? She puts out public notices and acts in some sort of like civil capacity, but it's definitely something that has been ordained by something outside of our current reality or institutional reality. You'll see what I mean. But one of the things that she brought up that reminded me, and I'm going to use the Schumann to explain this as a reference point, is that there is a difference. There's absolutely a difference. I want to dispel some what I feel are very intentional misrepresentations of concepts that have been infiltrated into the mystery school traditions that then became the New Age movement as we know it, and have really had a very real impact on people in a very intentional way, right? And it's such a subtle thing that you don't realize it's even at play until you start to really consider what it means. And then you're like, oh, I see. So there's this idea about raising your vibration, keeping your vibe high, right? This is something that's very common within the New Age or spiritual New Age circles, and even within the Starseed Lightworker community, because these are people who are working in a capacity of energetic worker or grid keeper or, a channeler or intuitive. So this is not uncommon, right? And this has made its way through in terms of keeping your vibe high. And what does that mean? That means that the frequency of your own field, your aura or your Merkaba, your own electromagnetic field, the frequency is at a higher pitch. It's a faster or higher frequency. So the pitch and what you resonate with, which is much more of these upper chakra types of things, it's easier to resonate with those frequencies. Okay, that's very different than a strong vibe, right? A strong vibe is this amplitude. It's louder. It has a larger wavelength, right? It can spread out over a longer distance or space. You see what I'm saying here? So the pitch itself, keeping a high frequency, is different than having a strong field. Now, imagine having a high frequency and a strong field. This is like when people astral project. This is when you leave your body. If you've ever had any experiences like that, and it's very visceral, right? It feels like you're being pulled out of your crown chakra, okay? And having a strong field and a high vibe, I mean, this is how you do these things. And this is how you're able to do maybe more shamanic work, for instance, or be able to astral travel or to go into these spaces with also a sense of your own consciousness intact, right? And still connected to something of your material body, but also you leave your body, right? And high levels of tantric practice, outside of the way it's been kind of distorted into a sexual exploitive thing, because that's definitely part of it too. This is how you leave your body, right? So that's that. But when you have a high vibe without a strong vibe, it's still a weak and high vibe. So what is the potential of that? Well, I can offer some suggestions of what the potential of that could be. Well, a false ascension, right? That has people resonating with a frequency that is high but is not strong. So they're very easily susceptible to an artificial frequency. So the only way to bypass that is to get completely in resonance with the highest frequency, which is not easy, right? That is, and it's through a variety of techniques, clearly. One of them to be like bhakti yoga, devotion, right? The essence of Christianity, I would say, is the love and the devotion to the beloved, as God is the beloved, and Jesus, for instance, as the representative here on earth to make that connection. But also too, bhakti yoga, which is a very old and ancient practice of devotion and love towards towards God as a beloved is one way to do this, right? And then your high vibe becomes strong through the heart, right? Because there's love there. That is, your heart is definitely amplifying your field. And so these things have to work in conjunction. So isn't it interesting when there's such a focus on keep your vibe high, but without the heart opening, without the strength, and without healthy boundaries about who you are in this material form as a spiritual being, you are just susceptible to basically getting pulled up into a false ascension. And that I feel like is a very important concept that has to be addressed. And I do see it addressed in certain areas and with certain readers and certain people who are doing this work. So I just want to add my voice to that and use this as the example here to explain it. So, and this is in fact what just happened, but there's space weather that I think can really account for this, right? There was a prediction that a CME would just have this glancing blow. And actually, if you look at the space weather, you can see that the solar wind speed and the temperature, in fact, had a really sharp rise. And the thing is, the field was able to maintain itself as a result of the amplification, not the pitch going up necessarily. So the geomatic the geomagnetic impact is not unstable. The magnetosphere is stable and calm, yet it can take the force of the impact. This is so important because this is about, where does our power come from? What are our healthy boundaries? What happens when we have to acknowledge and know that we have to work together in order to create something at a social or collective level? But how do we keep ourselves, energetically strong and a high vibe? How do we stay connected to our material and physical experience as spiritual beings? These are all questions that I think we really should definitely be asking right now if we haven't already, because what I can feel is I can feel an intrusion that is being mounted in some way, or an influence energetically that I get the sense is making its way in. And and this could just be circumstance, right, in your personal life, in a karmic way that is not necessarily, will seem negative on the surface, but again, will be part of a much more broad, transcendental, spiritual plan, that even our best intentions that we feel, and even when we're gathering strength from the fire within us, ultimately we have to give back to even that. And it can be very disappointing. And this third quarter moon is going to be the challenge of, right, where we came from with the Virgo full moon, right? Where does our power come from? Is it coming from us, and what has come from our own cultivation of that inner emotional intuitive power? Because it's through our emotions and through our subconscious that these tools are utilized in order to influence us, right? And so the heart has to stay open, and it's so hard to do that when you are holding space for not only your own suffering and grief, but so many others. Just talking about it and sinking down into it is enough to start opening, but I can feel the emotion moving through me. And we all have things in our lives that are bringing this out, and I am no different. So we could find ourselves getting pulled into where, well, I would say both of these aspects. So let's actually look at the chart and start to get a sense here of where this third quarter moon is going to find its most agitating and frustrating moment, which again is going to be late tonight, very early in the morning, when the moon and the sun come into square. And the moon will, in Capricorn, means that it's also going to square Chiron in Aries, right? Just like it's square to the sun, it's going to meet Uranus in a trine, which I think is really going to be a big part of how we manage power, our own inner power, and what it means and where it comes from. So let's look at the chart and definitely take a moment here to look at where we've been. So let's see here. I'm going to do this. All right, guys. It doesn't have to be this magnified. So healthy boundaries, right? Have you ever seen a ram? I've talked about this before, but my my spouse is like going through I'm going to watch every Jackass thing imaginable, because it's interesting to watch people like push their limits. I guarantee you there are some Lyran starseeds in that crew, absolutely, who push it to the limit in their bodies, no fear, right? Because there is a deep innate part of them that has been through the galaxy and has been through every corner of it. So challenging their bodies through stunts and pranks, not even a thing. I'm really curious. I kind of want to do a couple of their charts, or at least look at them. Anyway, so the reason I'm bringing that up is because one of those episodes, they get into a pen with rams. And if you ever watched a ram going for it, I mean, they literally are, that's how they either interact and fight with each other, or if they're very territorial, right? And so they come in and you just head down and they just ramming into things, a lot of power. So Aries is cardinal fire. So think about that energy of the ram, like just shooting forward with total abandon of anything other than just instinct. But think about that as the spark of life, like a surge or a bolt of electricity. That's the spark. That is Aries, right? There's no thought, there is only being, right? There is only the surge of power in that moment. So electricity, for instance, is a surge of power because of electrons moving as a result of charge that needs to be redistributed from point A to point B, for instance, right? And so that's the surge, because the polarity of electrical charge is in fact the mechanism for that surge to even happen. So Aries actually deals a lot with that concept, the polarity that is developing within the seed point of our own ego consciousness. And it becomes externalized when we come into Taurus, because that represents everything outside of us. So you can see from the very beginning is this theme of polarity and duality that must be synthesized in order to create something new. It's what makes the world go round. The whole universe is this alchemical process in order to grow and to evolve and to unfold. So this is a lot of where our identity is right now with the sun. And like I said, the new moon, it's going to be conjunct Aries with Mercury. So there's going to be a lot of focus on the subjective self, and that surge of creative potential within each of us. And there's a lot of warrior, there's a lot of battle, right? That's what pulls you and leads you into battle, is that Mars energy of action and penetration and output. So there's been a lot of holding back here because of Chiron. So we'll get into plenty of that. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because, of course, Jupiter and Mercury and Neptune, they're all in Pisces right now and squaring another fire sign overnight. But there's a lot of wrapping up here as well that this is represented. A lot of catharsis, a lot of purification, a lot of, centralizing our focus, preparing to come back into that seed point of new creation. Jupiter sitting here in 20 degrees Pisces, right? Coming into finally that third 10 degrees or decan or deacon, and representing that as a symbol that everything is set and the table is set. And so when it's time, everybody sits down together. And the amount of patience and surrender that Pisces ultimately requires of any soul returning back is part of what all of this represents. And so even as we tapped into our own creative potential through inner alchemy, through synthesis, understanding, coming to conclusions, and really drawing a sense of emotional strength from the meaning that that really creates our belief systems, each of us individually, and what we're feeling, maybe what's at the subconscious level that's not entirely obvious to us on the surface. And as the moon is now in the waning phase, it's becoming less obvious to us. But what was obvious was that full moon in Virgo. So now the real test, as I said on the forecasts, it's really now that full moon is going to meet some sort of crisis point within us. And again, it's a square moon, or it will be a square moon over here at 4 to 5 degrees Capricorn. And the warpath, we're going to feel the aspect of Capricorn that is really about the group coming together and getting it done, right? It's the mobilization of energy at a collective level and physical energy, emotional energies. And it's very much in a spirit of conquest, right? This is on the warpath, right? And so some people are in this canoe that's filled with supplies and weapons, and they're rowing the boat, and other people are in it and they're doing the dance, the war dance, right? It's also this bringing together the idea that there is a very specific physical need to mobilize the physical energies, and the war dance, the emotional energy. So you're bringing them both together, and it really affirms the group solidarity and unity of purpose when you take these kinds of actions. And so wherever you find this moon in Capricorn in your chart, this is the area where you're going to start feeling this capacity starting to mobilize, right? You're going to feel the rhythm rhythm of this war dance within you. And it's going to challenge this sense of identity that we're all having of like, I can transcend this and mobilize myself creatively, and all of us, just by becoming aware that there's something more that I can be as an individual. So this square, again, is going to be about, where does our power come from? Where does our power to transcend or to mobilize or to reach some sort of goal, where does it actually come from? And this square, as they all are, the third quarter moon is going to be a crisis point in our consciousness, and we'll be asking ourselves, where does our power come from? And is it come from an expression of this confidence, optimism, freshness, newness, output, right? Like we're going to sprout, our ego's just going to sprout wings and off we go, right? It's just, it's that easy. And it's important that we realize that it's that easy, but that comes from an awareness, a very new and fresh perspective, which is good. And it comes from desire to reach a higher level of existence. And this is where bhakti really can come in, or devotion can come into the expression. So it's being able to have this desire in the first place to reach a higher level of existence, that we even are able to envision that there's somewhere else to go. And then that's what mobilizes our identity, our expression, or our authentic expression. And light is the goal rather than darkness. And I think this is really important to keep in mind, as a darker Capricorn moon in a degree about aggressive mobilization is squaring this sun, right? Because what does it mean to have power? Where does our power come from? Virgo not only showed us what area we were going to need to find that power in emotionally, but also too where it comes from. And now, and where, and what it'll be used for. That's the other thing. And I think the moon in Capricorn, when it's square, is the area that it's really going to be used for. So, but we don't want to lose sight of the light rather than the darkness, because it could be very, with Capricorn and Virgo, these are both earth signs. They're feminine, so just by nature they represent the darker end of the spectrum in terms of under the surface and under the soil and the space and the void and the reception, right? And we need the darkness in order for light to even have an identity. So there's creative transformation here that we don't want to get pulled into the darkness of what is around the corner, right? Even though we can feel it now, it's mobilizing, it's moving. We don't want to be oblivious to that either, but we also don't want to lose sight of this desire to reach this devotion, this bhakti, this self-transcendence through our own voice, right? And so this is an important marker here when this becomes exact. So in the meantime, let's kind of go back now and look at what's transpired in terms of the moon in Pisces, because Pisces very much is about the end game and about the realm of the transcendental experience and our spiritual connection, the spiritual web of energies. It's also the fog of war, and it's also delusion and fantasy as well. So it holds both of those realities. It holds all of the realities because it's Pisces, and it really is a matter of our own resonance with whatever that is, that resonance out there. So but there's a lot of, it's very powerful, it's overwhelming, it's foggy, it's nebulous, but it's also incredible spiritual vision with Jupiter here, a real meaning to this, a set of principles that go along with it rather than just the feeling experience. Mercury here, wow, incredibly inspiring, a sense of compassion and real connection and unconditional love is so much easier to identify and express right now. Also, it's so much easier to be pulled into, of course, the fantasy as well. But there's a catharsis that is coming through the mind or information right now with Mercury in Pisces that is going to take care of that, right? That's going to come in and just be like, all right, it's time to purify and reform all of the corruption out of this system at a soul level. So be I wouldn't say forewarned, but just know that's the general energy of Mercury today. So this is midnight Eastern Standard Time on the 24th. So late last night, coming into this morning, the first conversation with our moon in Sag here is with Jupiter, the ruler of Sag as well. And there's something to be said for foresight, right? When we are able to align with and really understand the whole pattern of our belief systems, then we also are able to use that foresight, use that understanding of how it all fits together in order to procure what we need for the future, right? And that could be future society, but I would say very much about the natural resources if you want to get down to it. So, but it's really about overcoming obstacles, right? Capitalizing on every possible eventuality around you, either in terms of understanding, in terms of resources, in terms of your, the big picture here. And when you see the big picture, then everything is a possibility and a solution. So you also can really lack perspective with the moon in Sag and not really bring things into detail. You're just feeling into the large, big picture aspect of things. So, and part of that is being able to understand what's coming next and how to plan for it and how to procure what you need and what obstacles you need to overcome. So squaring Jupiter, that's like, well, everything, the table's already set. And I think that this has probably been a very difficult pill to swallow if you are still holding out for like, changing the tide of a massive tide or a massive tsunami wave in some ways that has been in effect for probably multiple generations, right? And I think that that's probably the case. And it's coming into its end phase, right? With Jupiter and Neptune. These two are going to come into a conjunction next month. Oh my gosh, like this is about really a dharma that is at a collective level so far beyond just what we're experiencing that has been in place. So are the little moon and Sag just like, no, I know what's coming and I'm going to be able to hunker down and get through it. It's like, it's not that we can't. And in fact, at the very same time that this moon is square to Jupiter, what you don't see on this chart is that the moon is in a sextile to Juno, which is pretty much in conjunction with Saturn, within a degree or 2 or 3, 19 to 20 degrees of Aquarius. And remember, Juno or Hera is the queen of the gods. She's the counterpart to Zeus. So while he is big picture and really more interested in what's happening in the heavens, so to speak, and defending the larger structure, Juno is the advocate and the representative of the state and of the people, right? And so, yeah, it's going to be, it's in terms of Jupiter, it's like the table is set. It's all ready to go. It's just a matter of the right timing. And these big ideas about it. And it's like, oh no, I can change the course of this, or maybe I'll change the menu, or maybe blah, 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 all these things. At least the sextile to Juno at 20 degrees of Aquarius is like, there's some sort of message of hope here that if we get shut down entirely in this mutable square, which I think there overnight, especially in our dream state, or just what we've been kind of going through, I think that there may have been a sense of, no matter how much you prepare, there's still, the pattern has already been set and the process is already in play. But there's hope here for us and society, at least in an idealized society. So civilization, the human spirit, honestly, and our capacity of what we can create together. There's hope here, and Saturn here is holding it down. So I mean, you could see it as Saturn, being, if you're appealing to Saturn as some sort of deity, then you're I think that a lot of the intention here is to probably, get everyone locked into a Borg cube, honestly. So if we're not looking at Saturn archetypally in that way, and what it represents, then we also see that there is a sense of inner authority, a scaffolding, a backbone, and a timing. Again, it's all about this timing, and there's a cushion here somewhere, and there's a sense of real advocacy, or at least representation, in terms of our mutual connection to each other, even though at a spiritual level and in terms of the divine plan, the table is already set, my friends. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't anything that we can do at all. So that flips it around, right? That you can be like, you know what? Trust the plan. Everything is going to be taken care of. Remember, Jupiter, big picture. Not really good with the details, and certainly not actually in charge. That's Saturn. In terms of the material world, Jupiter is in charge of the dome, right? Of the heavens, so to speak. And it's really about managing things. So it's not to say that there isn't a false sense of security here. It's important that we also allow ourselves to internally and at an emotional level procure what we need in order to manage ourselves as we move through. And I think that that's the realism of Saturn in Aquarius, and Juno too, to be sure that there is a balancing of the social order, right? And a sense of hope and a message or a certification in some way of this energy. So that's important to realize, that there's so much potential to be just, out to sea, right? And to be following some sort of false guru with Jupiter and Pisces here, that we may just be like, oh, I don't even have to have any foresight. I can just let it all be taken care of, right? And that's not personal responsibility at all. And that's up to every individual to decide for themselves. But it comes out through these transits, and the sextile to all of this Aquarius energy with the moon and Juno and Saturn is where we're able to actually harmonize this understanding that we have inside of us, we feel inside of us, and we're drawing our strength from it, right? And so as the moon moves through the evening, like I said, sextile to Saturn, and this really seems to have a lot to do with, at least in my read, it has a lot to do with our own individual unique pattern of self, and the things that make us special, the things that allow us to, that may be seemingly in contrast to the world outside of us, right? Think of, think of like some sort of business where it's like a family business, or it's all the same group or ethnicity or language, right? That are all running this business, and it's their particular cultural attributes, or even just their language and the way they communicate with each other that is it keeps them, they're foreign, it's alien to them what's outside of that, but they actually are offering something as a result. And so it's making use of that in order to survive and prosper in a seemingly alien environment. And so if there are specialized interests, this is where the moon is 22 degrees Sagittarius. So you're maintaining your own integrity in situations that don't really value who you are, but you're still maintaining your integrity. And again, this sextile to Saturn, this is a way to harmonize when things seem kind of like, what is going on? Or who am I? Where do I belong? This is an opportunity, an investment opportunity of that special skill that one may have in Sagittarius, whatever it is, and that in fact is what is able to provide some sort of cushion and some sort of small comfort in a time where there may be less and less and less because it's becoming more and more diffused the closer that Jupiter and Neptune come to each other. And now that the Sun is in Aries, right, we're really trying to express and identify ourselves with this new cycle at the same time. So Moon and Sun both right now, or had been overnight, in fire signs. I mean, there's just a lot of action and movement and particles, when they heat up, they move faster. And I do get the sense that we're all kind of feeling that activation and that heating up within ourselves in general just right now. So when the moon comes into Cap, and is probably there right now as I'm recording this, it will really bring our emotions down to reality. So there's Saturn being our reality check in a lot of ways. Of what it means to be in a material reality. And I do feel like it's our special background, whatever it is that we feel makes us unique and allows us to survive and prosper in a world that we're like, what is that? It's the idealized structure of each other, of our connection to each other as a whole, of humanity, right? An awakened humanity, as it were. So for those that have been on this path and find themselves ready to accept the truth that it is that thing that made us kind of an alien in our own world, that actually I think is going to allow for there to be some sort of emotional cushioning as we are coming to discover and to be aware of everything that is part of our society. So this is part of the awakening. So after this is where the square to Neptune then comes in. So again, this is all overnight. So let's go forward a couple hours into the morning here, and we'll see that the moon had just come off its square to Neptune this morning. And at the very same time is in what you'll see is a quincunx to Rahu, or her own north node at that moment, pretty much at the same time, the same whole degree. And we feel a sense of good luck and fortune. There's a reward which meets the effort at integrating ourselves into the world around us without losing ourselves, right? That's the real nature of Sagittarius and the idea of alchemy, that you become something more than yourself, but you can maintain who you are in that process because you're a vital individual's vital part of the collective system. And so, but the square to Neptune, again, Neptune in Pisces, that's like you are surrounded by the ocean, kind of like that. My new intro is, you see the little person that's swimming out to sea. This is very much what I think Neptune in Pisces right now is doing for all of us. I mean, we are becoming an island unto ourselves, and it's really Neptune that is the ocean surrounding us, and this little island so far has really been the sun, and now Mercury is so related to our identity and our consciousness that very much identified right now as this little island. Again, there's something here, some sort of little bluebird, right? Perched on the gate that's like, hey, there's something within you, in your soul, that's letting you know that, like, if you are staying true to yourself, like there's something here for you. There's something to look forward to, even though seems like there is no gate. There's no bluebird. It's just me lost out here at sea, like that person. Well, that person was swimming, but you know what I mean. And it's forcing all of us in a way to become very aware of our dharma and to fulfill that dharma, because there's everything surrounding us can be anything. So the fog of war is so thick right now, and it's just encroaching. And again, it's really it's going to seem like there's nothing really. And this moon in Sagittarius, I think, as it won't seem like it at first. You might not even have an impression other than just something very subtle, or something, again, like I said, in the dream phase. And the quincunx to the north node at this same position is just an adjustment that needs to be made, because at a soul level, we're being drawn to really command ourselves in our material world, our senses, our own physical energy, what is ours, and command it, use it to our fullest potential, right? And sometimes this can be aggressive, but also too, you don't want to just be run over when your very life is being threatened. So that's something to consider as well. This is just an adjustment that can be made in that moment to realize that to command an authority over ourselves will in fact allow for this emotional recognition that there is something here for us. It's just really difficult to see right now, or to feel and to act on. I think that's with Sagittarius, and to draw our strength from. So there's, like I said, there's a lot of encroaching right now, and a sense of really trying to making its way in, or attempting to influence our own subconscious through a collective value system that's maybe not ours. And I think we really, again, needed to pay attention with the South Node and the Moon a couple days ago to really see what that has already been like, and what has already happened, and how we've already transformed as a result of power and energy that's already been generated by a social system. So it's really, where's Mercury here? Yes. So like I said, this is all this morning that we're feeling this. And you may have been feeling all kinds of weird things. And so here's the square to Mercury. And this is where, again, this idea of foreshadowing, when you get into these last degrees of Sagittarius, the capacity to really be able to anticipate what is coming based on a connection to an entire pattern, right? It's like knowing the story, because you've done the story over and over and over, right? The hero's journey, for instance, this is just a way to explain the mythology. Like, the whole story is already written. It's already written, and it's by understanding the story, and being aligned with it, that you're able to foreshadow what's going to happen. And maybe there's some emulation emotionally. And some sort of anticipatory enjoyment. It's like a little boy on a rocking horse, right? It's just like, one day I'm going to be a cowboy, right? And it's the idea that there is a rhythm that is starting to build that is not exactly mature yet, but it foreshadows this maturity. And again, square to Mercury in Pisces is just like, oh, nope, soul level catharsis coming in. And it's very difficult to enjoy this these powers that can only be dreamt of when the mind is operating as a purging agent, a purification agent, or information is in itself purging. So we don't want to lose sight of where we can be, and we want to have determination to give lesser potentials more dimension, right? That's always the opportunity and the optimism that comes along with Sagittarius. There's always the opportunity to take something plain and turn it into something precious. But when we are faced with information, communication, or just a mental awareness of like, wow, there needs to be a soul purification, and it's going to come through, it's really, I think that we can get very discouraged again. So there's a lot of this going on right now. So this is already, like I said, transpired. So we don't really have a lot of major transits, again, moon transits, until it comes into Capricorn. So let's actually take a look at that. And you can see Lilith is going to start coming into a square with, let's see here, with Jupiter in Pisces. So this is the other end of the square. This is Lilith in Gemini as well. So we'll talk about that a lot more tomorrow in the astrology report for the weekend, because what we're going to find is Lilith is going to square all of this Pisces energy over the weekend. And if you thought it was already kind of like troublesome with the moon in Sag in our fields, having Black Moon Lilith in Gemini is going to be even more interesting with this other side of the square to all this Pisces energy. So the moon has moved into Capricorn by this time. This is just about 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So let's go forward couple more hours, because it's really going to take us over to the 25th in order to get to this first quarter moon. You can just look at the chart and just kind of get an idea here. So here's our moon in Capricorn. Yeah, things got very serious by this point, right? The information got down to earth. It got dense. It got, a sense of emotional or intuitive like responsibility and power, right? Again, power is a big part of this Capricorn archetype and the symbol. Right? A mountain goat is very powerful, very, very powerful. Different than the ram, but they kind of have, they have a different thing going on, and they're naturally square to each other. So there's that as well. Moon in Cap is square the sun in Aries. And again, like I already went over this, and I'll talk more about it tomorrow, right? The war drums, we can feel them. And where are we conscious of, right? We're going to be pulled into those feels. It won't be the full picture because it's not a full moon. It's a quarter moon. It's only half illuminated. And we're getting at a darker moon. So it's only going to get darker from here. And the sun that is having us, really a sense of optimism in our expression and our identification. And like I said, it's the creative mobilization that comes from even being able to, identify that there's somewhere higher to go, right? And that bhakti, I think that this is going to be a very important moment so that we become aware of where our power truly comes from and where we're going to really put our consciousness as we move into this next lunar cycle and finish this one out that started with a new moon in Pisces. So we'll talk a lot more about those types of things tomorrow in the astrology report. I just wanted to draw attention to what is happening today and how people are feeling. And there are a lot of feels, and they're about to get very serious feels, but also a down to business type of feel as well. So I'm going to leave it there for today, my friends. Wow, it's almost 50 minutes at this point. So I didn't even know what time it was or anything. So if you are interested in reading energy work to support your process, if you're interested in the Starseed Fellowship, all of that information is in the description box below. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Remember to subscribe if you're not subscribed already. You hit the like button, you comment, you share. That really does support the channel. It impacts the algorithm that then recommends this to people. And believe it or not, I have a lot of consistent viewers, clients, and people who are part of the Starseed Fellowship now who found me randomly through the algorithm. So it does actually matter. So with that in mind, I love you guys. Thank you for being here. I'll see you tomorrow for live stream on YouTube, 10 a.m. Eastern, and we go over the astrology for the weekend. Have a great day, and I will talk to you tomorrow.